Welcome back to Homa Studio. This is Homa, and this is our Photopea series, and this will be one more video on colorizing called A Better Way to Colorize, because we just did 2 videos on colorizing Marilyn where we used layer mode set to color overlay to change colors of a black and white image to kind of paint over areas and colorize them. And I'm just going to show you a better way. That's all I'm going to do here is show you a more efficient way to do that. And by efficient, I mean a lot easier to change the color if you need. I'm looking at a barn here. It's just a sample I used to make it easy because there's not a lot of detail to work with here. We have a blue sky. We have, I'll turn that off. We have a red barn. I'll turn that off. I have green hills. I'll turn that off. I have yellow grass, kind of hay in the front. I'll turn that off. And this is how it started. So it's a black and white image like this that was colorized. And I started with the grass and added the hills and did the sky, which was pretty easy, blue sky, and then finally did the barn. And I realized I have the aluminum or whatever, the corrugated metal kind of stuff in red. That could be something else. But what I really want to point out here is that it's easy to change. If you don't like a red barn, you want it blue, you go in here and go to layer effects on the layer and just go to the color overlay effect. And if you don't want a red barn, you can go here and make it blue. I'll hit OK. And you can adjust any opacity that you want. Make it kind of a gray blue. Now maybe the gray blue doesn't look good with the blue sky. Then maybe you want an orange sky. So I'll leave that bluish gray like that. And then I'll go to the sky. Maybe I want to change the sky. I'll go to the color overlay effect. And maybe I'll give it kind of a sunsetty kind of sky, like an orangey kind of sky, and see how that looks. And I'll hit OK. And here I can adjust how much I want. So if it's a little, too intense of an orangey color, I could do that. I could change the grass. I could change any of that. So that's why this is colorizing in a better way, because we can edit things very easy. And the way we do this is we just paint it black. Every layer is black, so we don't have to try to match up colors anymore. We can just go back and paint on something. So even if I miss something here, when I go to the barn layer, if I missed something, I could paint right over it and it'll use the same color. I don't have to match another color. And one thing I'll also show you is how to actually, I painted the barn without actually painting it. I actually painted everything else and then just used a selection and filled it. So I'll show you how to do that later. I'm going to go and work on this really quickly. I don't have to paint all this. It's just grass, hill, sky, and barn. So I'll do some of that, and I'll just show you how to do it a better way. So what I'll do first is I'll go here to black and white farm. I just did a search, and I'll just use the same one here because it's simple and it's easy to paint. So it's this one here. It's not real high resolution, so it's not really a great image in terms of resolution, but it's fine to practice on. So I'm just going to copy this and copy image. And I'll go back to Photopea and I'll go File New. And you can see it takes the resolution that's there, and I'll hit Create and I'll just paste it. And again, not a big image, so I'll do Control plus, zoom in a little bit so I fill up my screen a little bit more. I'll zoom out, Control minus, just to see everything here. Now, what I did first on the other one is I just did the sky first. And let me name this layer. I'll double click on layer 1 and I'll call this Farm. And then I'll make a sky layer, and I'll do this as quick as I can because again, we're just showing a better way here. And obviously the sky, you might want to do blue, so I'll just get a nice big brush. So I'm just going to use my paintbrush, and notice I'm painting in black. I'm not going to change the color. I'm going to paint everything in black. So make sure you click on the default here, black and white, and I'll paint foreground black, and I'll make my brush real big because I'm just painting the sky, and I'll just kind of do that. I'll just paint the sky, and I'll start painting the sky. I'm not going next to the barn yet, but that's how I'm painting the sky. And then what I'll do is I'll go here on my sky layer and change this, just like we did on the Marilyn videos, change that to color. Now that's kind of black on black and white. It doesn't really look like anything. It just made it a little cooler. But then what we're going to do, this is what makes it really efficient, is we're going to go to layer style. And this is where you can do drop shadows and all that kind of stuff in Photoshop. Layer style, and we're going to go to color overlay. Now in Photoshop, it always shows up red at first. And what you can do here is just pick a color, and I'll pick like a bluish color, like this, light blue, and I'll hit OK. Now right now it's actually working. That's because this is already set the color because I was already working on it. But normally it's going to look like this. It'll just look like that. It'll just change the black to blue. But what makes this really powerful is if you change the blend mode here to color, now it's going to colorize the sky, and if you want it less intense, you can adjust it here. You can still do that on the layer as well, but I'm going to do that here and hit OK, and now I'll just continue painting this sky blue. And remember, you can always click, hold shift, and kind of go down a line. Now this is probably a big brush. I should probably zoom in and make my brush smaller, but I just want to show you this example here first. And again, I'm using my left bracket next to the P key to actually make my brush smaller. So I'm just clicking in here to kind of work on this. Not doing this really neat. And there's my sky. And again, what I have is a layer effect. So if I don't like the sky color, I want it brighter, I want it bluer, I want it more aqua, just go into color overlay, the effect. Go into here and maybe you want it more on the greener side. Now, maybe you don't, but if you do, you can choose it here and hit OK. And again, you could still adjust the opacity. Now remember, it does have to be in the blend color mode. So now it's a little more kind of a bluish green up here in the sky. I'll leave it like that for now. Now if you want to do the grass in the front, there's kind of like the hills in the background and then there's the grass in the front. So I'll just call it foreground grass or just hay because it's more of like a hayish kind of thing here. So I'll just make a new layer and I'll call it hay because it's kind of the dry grass in the front. And I'll do the same thing. I'll just paint with black. I'm never changing this color. So I can make my brush real big. I'm using my right square bracket. Make my brush real big. I know it's hard to see on there. You could even soften the brush. I didn't do that yet, but I could go in here and probably soften this brush since I'm doing grass. Put it around 75 so the edges aren't so hard. And then you're like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't want to paint the grass black. But if you go here and you change this to color, that's just the first part, change that to color. Now it's kind of doing a black kind of overlay. But then you want to go up here to layer and then go to layer style and color overlay. And then choose whatever color you want. Go here and choose a kind of a hayish kind of color. I could see it right down here already. I'll leave it like that. And it's keeping the opacity from the last time. And I'll do that. You could always adjust that anytime. So I'll just do this real quick. And again, the colorizing is keeping the highlights and the shadows. And it's not really kind of making it cloudy like you would if you just adjusted the opacity and put a color there. So I'm doing that with the grass. And again, I could use different opacities up here against the edge, but I'll do that. And then I'll just do the background green hills here. I'll do that really quick. I'll make a layer. I'll call it hills, just so I know that's the hills in the background. And again, I could go in here, make my brush smaller. I could start painting, and it's painting black, which I don't want. And remember, if you paint anything that you don't want, you can just erase it or undo, but you can erase it a little bit. I'll make my brush a little harder now, and probably smaller, so I'll make it a little bit harder, and I'll just click up here to make this thing go away. I find that easiest. And I'll make my brush a little bit smaller, but since I'm painting in black, that's not easy to do, so I'm just going to make this color down here in the layer mode, and then I'm also going to go to layer, layer style, color overlay, and I'll make it a little more greenish. And I'll hit OK. And now I'll start painting these a green color in here. And again, I'm not doing this real neat. I just want to show you this. And I'll go in here and pretend I'm doing this really neat, but I'm kind of a little sloppy here. And then I'll zoom in and do some of this stuff in here. Make my brush smaller because you could see the hills kind of through the barn in here. And before you say, okay, I've seen enough here, I know how to do it, wait till I show you how to fill the barn color so you don't even have to paint it. So that's the big finish here. So make sure you stay tuned for that because I think it's kind of cool. And I wasn't planning to do that. I just thought, oh, that'll be easy instead of painting the barn. Okay, so now I have all this stuff painted, and let me just finish up over here. Again, I didn't do this really neat. And here's what's neat too about this method. If I go back to paint the grass down here, the hay, I don't have to go and find the color again. I don't have to go and double click. It's still black and it still has the effect set to it. So everything's done here. So all I have to do is paint the barn. Now I didn't do the sky in there as well. So if I wanted to add sky in there, I could do that because I don't think I did that part. So let me just go to the sky and it'll take the sky color. I don't have to worry about the color. It'll use that blue color. So I'll just go in there and do the sky. And I could have filled this in later too if I forgot to do the sky. And again, I'm not doing it really neat, because I just want to show you how to fill everything then. So let me make this a little bigger here. Now, instead of painting the whole barn, maybe you want a red barn, maybe you want a blue barn, whatever barn you want. Instead of painting this, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the transparency masks for all these layers that I made. So I made all these layers here for hills, hay, sky, and well, 3 of them, I guess. Sky, hills, hay, and I'm going to make a new layer here on the top, and I'll call it barn, and I want to fill the barn with a color. So I'll just let it be black for now. But how do I select the barn? Well, I have everything else already selected. Now, it's not selected, but they have what's called transparency masks. That means this part here in these layers, everything that's where there's content, that's the transparency mask. So I can select everything that's on those layers. So I'll do that. So I'll command click on hills. And you can see it selected the hills. But now I also want to select the hay. So I'll hold shift and command click on hay. And I can see that the hay selected. And then I'll keep shift held down. I'll keep my shift button down. And I'll click on the sky. Right on the mask, right on the icon. Now everything's selected. The sky, the hills, and the hay are all selected right now. And that means I could select inverse. I could go select inverse, and now everything that wasn't painted, I can paint. So I could go to the barn layer, and I can go edit fill, or I could use option delete, and I'm just going to go edit fill right now, and I'm going to choose foreground, which is black, and I'll hit OK, and now I just filled the barn. And I'm going to do Command D, which is the same as deselect. So I'm going to do Command D, and get rid of the selection, and now I can set this to color, which is just black and white, and then I can go to layer, layer style, color overlay, and give it any color I want. So if I want a red barn, I could go here and choose a red color, and if it's too intense, I could kind of go down here, make it a little more faded red color, hit OK, adjust this if I want it a little more faded red, anything I want. I could change the barn color, I could change the sky color, I could change the hills, I can erase from layers, I could do anything like that. It's just a better way to colorize, and it's just using black. So I'm just using black on all my layers, setting them to color, and then what's really making the color is the layer style, color overlay. That's what's using the style, and remember the opacity can be adjusted, but the blend mode has to be set to color. So it's color overlay, and it's set also the blend mode to color. And that's a little bit more to remember, but it certainly makes it more flexible when you want to change something, when you want to repaint on a layer. If I miss something on this layer, I don't have to worry about changing colors or matching colors or going into the palette. So that's just another way to paint here. I should probably save this. I'll do save as PSD. And I just have it on my desktop right now. I'll call it Barn Color 2 because this is the second one I did as my example for the video. So I'll just save that, and that'll save it down to my desktop. And remember, you can always go File, Export as JPEG, and save a JPEG from there. But this isn't real high resolution, so I probably wouldn't save this. This was just a little practice exercise here just to show you how to colorize a better way than be messing with all the colors in here and double clicking over here and then going back and trying to match them. This way you could change all your colors. If you want to change the sky, remember, just go to your effects, go to color overlay, go in here to the color, make it brighter, make it bluer. You want a little bluer, hit OK. Now it's a little bluer sky. If you want it a little more intense, I'll increase the color here so it's a little more intense. So now we have a kind of a brighter, bluer sky. So any of that we can change. And I did this a little bit sloppy because I was just showing you how to do this. More of the issue with using all black and using these layer effects, which again, there's tons of layer effects. They're just like Photoshop. You could do the same thing in Photoshop, but just wanted to show you an easier way to colorize. So thanks for coming to Home Studio to watch this Photopea video.